Welcome to our movie recap channel, your ultimate destination for in-depth and engaging movie summaries, whether you're looking to catch up on the latest blockbusters or revisit classic films.
The film is set a long time back when present-day people, as of late, began possessing portions of Europe. This is when horticulture was as yet not found, so the main wellspring of food was hunting different creatures. People framed little gatherings and gone far distances looking for cover, water, and food.
Life was extremely challenging, and unquestionably the fittest could endure. Dissimilar to now, where individuals are getting rich off of non-existent cash and eating food on camera can make you a tycoon. We are then taken somewhere inside a cavern where a gathering of 6 middle-aged people are assembled around a fireplace.
The head of the gathering is Adam, a courageous apex predator. He has a sibling, staff, and child, Harren, and the three seem, by all accounts, to be exceptionally close. The most seasoned part is a man named Odell who is dependably feeling terrible for reasons unknown, perhaps on the grounds that they don't have hot water, toothbrushes, or running pans. Then there's a pregnant woman, R, who additionally is Adam's accomplice. In conclusion, the last part is a young girl named BA. She as of late joined the gathering when they were going through the forest. At first, they treated her well and offered her equivalent food, yet presently, they essentially cause her to do the majority of the work. The one in particular who's pleasant to her is Gear, maybe in light of the fact that he has a Stone Age man pulverized. As of now, the gathering is going through an exceptionally tough period as they haven't eaten anything in days. This has rendered them exceptionally frail, especially A, who is in the 7th month of her pregnancy. When the sun rises the following morning, they pack their effects and set out on their excursion.
En route, Adam brings up certain hills somewhere far off and says that they're going there. He makes sense of that the hills have bunches of caverns where they can spend the nights heartily.
They likewise contain numerous creatures and different necessities of life, making the spot an exacting heaven.
Wouldn't go that far by and by, but cave dwellers truly do like caverns.
After hearing this, the gathering gets more energized and begins strolling with more assurance. Sooner or later, Adam and his sibling, Gear, separate from the gathering to find something to eat. They move down a steep slope and before long run over a huge corpse of a woolly mammoth. However, every one of the consumable parts has been devoured, leaving only the bones.
Perhaps this panics the siblings as they understand that something considerably bigger than a mammoth is wandering these lands. After wandering a piece further, they show up where the tremendous woods are apparent. Stuff, who is a piece bold, naturally proposes that they follow the forest way as it would save them a lot of time. He additionally accepts that they can find a ton of creatures in there which they can use for food.
However, Adam eagerly declines the thought, saying the forest is perilous.
He is sure that whatever killed the mammoth is prowling inside there.
He proclaims that they will be going as far as possible around the forest, regardless of whether it takes them a couple of additional days. That evening, the siblings got back to the remainder of the gathering with basically nothing. They choose not to uncover about the dead mammoth, so as not to stimulate any frenzy. Since there are no caverns close by, they get a fire going and continue to go through the night out in the open. Soon after, the gathering begins hearing terrifying commotion somewhere out there.
Adam and Stuff quickly assume it's the same tracker creature liable for the mammoth's demise.
They get their weapons and plan to battle whatever is hiding in obscurity. Yet, right when they're occupied, the young boy, Harren, is grabbed away. A crushed Adam attempts to follow the assailant, but the others stop him, saying it's too hazardous.
They guarantee him that they will search for Harren in the first part of the day, when it's a lot more secure. Not more secure for Harren, but more secure for them, you know. In the following scene, the sun rises, and the gathering embarks to find the young boy.
Since Adam is a carefully prepared tracker, he tracks the impressions of the creature and before long goes over Harren's garments.
He finds a tacky dark fluid in it, yet no blood. And I guess alien goop is superior to blood, so this makes him confident that his child is as yet alive.
The gathering keeps following the strides until they arrive at the edge of the timberland. Understanding that his child has been taken inside, Adam rashly runs into the backwoods with the others following him intently.
After some time, they show up where a lot of dead creature bones and intestines have been stacked up. Before they can snatch something to eat, they hear a creature shrieking close by.
Terrified, the gathering runs further into the backwoods until they get totally lost. Since it has gotten extremely dull, they choose to get a fire going and camp here. The elderly person, Odell, begins accusing BE as expected, claiming that their hardship began the second she showed up.
He recommends that they expel her from the gathering pronto. But while the others are thinking, they are by surprised by the mysterious creature.
When the clamor starts drawing nearer, Adam tosses his spear that way, but it doesn't stir things up around town, demonstrating that this creature is exceptionally dexterous. At this strange moment, Adam chooses to overcome Ly stand up to the creature alone. He knows that, as the pioneer, he should act now or his whole gathering will be in peril. He then gets one more lance and wanders into the dark, hoping to kill the beast. Sadly, this turns out to be a grave mistake, as when Adam's back is turned, something attacks him from behind.
His frantic shouts are heard by the remainder of the gathering, but they are too frightened to assist him.
When the shouts finally die down, Gear rushes inside to search for his sibling. He figures out how to track down him and some way or another takes him back to the fireplace. But as when the gathering sees his face, they understand that he won't endure.
Turns out that anything went after him is detached his face and penetrated several organs in his body.
"It'll be fine," says Gear. "It'll buff right out." Gear then snatches a sharp piece of rock and wounds Adam with it, giving him some closure. In the repercussions of this episode, the gathering is left totally crushed. The injury of losing her accomplice accumulated with extreme yearning causes her to fall to the ground.
As of now, BA concocts a strange thought.
She proposes that they eat Adam's body.
The other individuals are obviously disturbed, but since they have no different options, they agree.
"Shotty is his cheeks," says Gear. BA then cuts segments of tissue from Adam's body, which they cook prior to devouring.
The one in particular who doesn't proceed with the difficulty is Adam's sibling, Gear, until the others nod off.
That is when he's getting them bum cheeks. When the sun rises the following morning, Gear assumes responsibility for the gathering and vows to lead them outside the forest. However, after nighttime and long stretches of walking, they wind up showing up at the same spot. Odal then thinks of his own eccentric hypothesis.
He accepts that the enormous creature is chasing them down since they have barged in on its territory. When the others inquire as to whether he has a solution, Odal derangedly says that they should sacrifice one of them.
This prompts everybody to stare at BA as she is the only outsider in the gathering.
They then grab her from three sides and attempt to restrain her. During the turmoil, BA kicks Gear, making him hit his head on a stone and pass out. Yet the others still manage to drag her away and hold her against a stone. Odal then begins yelling for the beast, demanding that it emerge and devour the young girl.
"Come on now, she's new." Moments later, similar frightening shrieks are heard somewhere out there. Odal turns out to be terrified to the point that he freezes on the spot, allowing BA the chance to escape. Now with no place to go, Odal and to get their weapons and plan to confront the beast together.
But without a moment to spare, he deceives her by pushing the blade inside her midsection.
Odal then rants, stabbing her repeatedly, demanding that the beast come out.
But he gathers the remainder of her strength and pushes him, making him slip and break his leg. Now, the two of them are severely harmed and unable to defend themselves.
The scene then cuts to the early hours of the morning where Gear finally regains consciousness.
He slowly gets up and looks for his companions, but the thick fog keeps him from seeing much. Eventually, he finally spots the elderly person lying on the ground.
Gear continues to get to him, but all of a sudden, somebody pulls him to the ground. It turns out to be BA who is attempting to screen this mysterious animal. Soon after, it finally shows up and remains on top of Odal. This panics the chap such a lot that he immediately dies. In the meantime, BA has had enough, so she decides to confront the monster.
She involves her companions as bait and baits it towards him.
Right when the animal approaches, BA attacks it from behind, knocking it to the ground.
She then removes its cover, just to make a frightening discovery.
The tracker they have all been dreading is neither a beast nor an animal.
It is actually a Neanderthal woman, a direct relation of Homo sapiens.
They gaze at one another for some time before the insane lady makes a run for it.
The other to pursue her and eventually manage to escape the forest, but they lose track of the Neanderthal lady, allowing her to get away.
In the following scene, Gear and BA have a contention about what to do next. He suggests that they get back to where they came from and take a stab at rearing kids, but BA wants to follow the Neanderthal.
She believes that these people are much more advanced, and they have already figured out new techniques for hunting and food. Gear thinks it's a dangerous move, but BA declares that they will die from hunger anyway, so it's best they die trying.
After hearing this, Gear is finally convinced, and they start following the Neanderthal lady using her steps. Late at night, after climbing through the lofty mountains and dangerous streams, they arrive at a spot with several caves. The two then decide to separate and explore different sections of the place.
But when Bea enters one of the caves, she is ambushed by a Neanderthal man.
He pins her to the ground and starts choking her. Seconds later, Bea blacks out, and apparently she has died.
But this turns out to be a trick, as the moment the man releases his grasp, she cuts his neck with a sharp stone, killing him ruthlessly.
That's one method for gaining from them, I surmise.
Following this, Bea ventures further inside the cave until she runs over a room lit with fire.
To her shock, she also finds Heron, the same boy who was kidnapped before.
He asks about the whereabouts of his father, but Bea fails to come up with an answer.
All at once, the Neanderthal lady shows up in the room, holding a weapon.
Bea also grabs a log of fire and starts shouting as loud as possible to drive her away.
Hearing the uproar, Gear instantly races to help his friend, but after reaching the room, he is frozen in shock to see his nephew alive. This allows the insane lady to slam him in the head with a blunt object.
She then strikes him repeatedly until he stops moving.
Sickened, Bea burns down the dried animal skins in the room and escapes with Heron.
They somehow reach the top and crawl out of the narrow cleft.
Seconds later, the entire cave is set ablaze, and the Neanderthal lady also tries to force herself out of the crack.
But since she's too large, she cannot do so.
She desperately pleads for help in her own native tongue, and Heron tries to help her. However, Bea hasn't forgotten how the lady treated her group,
so she grabs a stone and bludgeons her to death. Heron is crushed by what just happened, as the lady had treated him like her own child. But when Bea reveals that she killed his father, he finally calms down.
In the last scene, the two go inside another part of the cave where they find several drawings on the walls, a lot of food and other modern equipment.